Hello. Hi. Okay, sorry. Uh, Hi. Is there anyone there? Okay. So, hello everybody. Now I can see that there are some people who are currently watching right now, and I do hope that there will still be more that will be coming in soon. So I hope that you all have been looking at some of our past videos to actually share with regards to the content in PSLE. And yes, there'll be even more to actually for me to share with regards to our PSLE math. So just to make sure again, right, this is actually targeting mainly for primary 5, parents with primary 5 students who are taking the PSLE next year, not for this year, because we are talking about the preparation for PSLE math. So if you are looking forward to more stuff regards to this year's PSLE math, maybe I'll just like to briefly mention to all of you that the coming Thursday, I'll be actually going through some of the content for the actual PSLE paper, because I'm going to be asking my students who have taken PSLE to share with me some of their questions so that they can later on, after they share with me the questions, I can explain to them how it's solved and then let everybody else as well know how the questions in PSLE is going to be solved. Okay, so hopefully we'll get to see more people coming in soon, and then later on, okay, get to share with everyone. Okay, I get to see more people coming in already. So we'll just wait till 7:30, then I will begin my presentation. Okay, so just wait a little bit more first, okay, and we're going to be starting very, very soon. Okay, in fact, we have just reached the 7:30 mark. So now welcome everybody again for our presentation here on preparing for PSLE Math. Now, I'm going to be talking about basically stuff regards to the PSLE, and we're going to be focusing on two teachers here for today. Me, Teacher Jason, and another one of our teachers, Teacher Wan Ing, because both of us will be the main teachers who will be tackling the PSLE content next year. So now let me get right into it. So just to share a little bit about myself. So I am Teacher Jason, and I am currently the primary 5 level in charge. So that means that as long as we are talking about the primary 5 level, I'll be handling the stuff with regards to it. So I've actually studied in NTU in chemistry, and I've actually won some awards as well for the New South Wales Math, and also the Australian Math as well. And I've actually over 6 years of teaching experience, and 4 of them are within Think Academy. So I'm also a Catholic high school alumni, so that means I am definitely aware of what's going on in our school, and also on how they are testing their math papers in the school as well. I also know some of the teachers there, so I'm actually aware of what their concerns are when they are planning to set the questions. Now, there is also another teacher in our Think Academy as well, Teacher Wan Ing, or as some of the students know as Teacher Ing. So you can see her PSLE score is actually a very good score, and she has education from Oxford University, University College London as well, and also the alumni for RI and also Raffles Girls School. And she has over 4 years of teaching experience. So you can see both of us are very capable teachers, and we have been teaching our students for an extended period of time. In fact, for Teacher Ing, she has been teaching her students starting from primary 1 all the way now to primary 5 already. So it's a really long span of time. Now, today's topics, we're going to be covering on 3 main parts. Firstly, PSLE and how it will be affecting your child's future, and how is your child's future affected by it, the statistical analysis of some of the past year papers for PSLE, and last but not least, some preparation and tips and tricks as well, that we don't just have for every student, but also some things that Think Academy wants to share with everyone. So now, PSLE to secondary school. So we have this system called the AL1 system, and I can see there are a few of the parents watching this live stream right now. Can I ask if you are aware of the AL system? Okay, if you do know about it, you can type a 1 inside the chat so that I can see that you know what's going on. Okay, so if you do, very good. Okay, so the PSLE, the AL1 system, is a very important system that everyone needs to know and should know at this point of time. So the introduction a little bit to the AL system and how it affects us. So the AL system here is where we are going to be using AL 1 to 8 to replace the scores that students have been well known to since the past. So basically, the score itself, the score that the student gets inside the paper, will be directly translated to an AL score. This AL score, in a certain case, would actually make it less competitive because we are no longer looking at all of these, like I would say, wider range of points here to go and gauge the student's ability. And in fact, in words of PSLE, okay, the MOE, they actually did state as well that students' scores would directly be reflected with the AL1 without the use of the bell curve. But the thing is, does it really just, is it really less competitive? Let's think about this. So it's a kind and a cruel change as well. Because as we can see, in the past, when you score 270 versus 276, these are quite good scores already. But in this case, the difference between the students are actually pretty obvious, a 6-point difference. But maybe for students who are scoring AL1, it no longer matters so much. Because in this case over here, okay, it may not seem much of a difference for students who are scoring very well. But for students who are not scoring as well, and in fact are scoring, let's say, a 89 versus a 90, a student scoring 89 would definitely receive a AL2 versus a student scoring 90, which is the AL1. This shows a very wide gap between the students' scores because as we can see over here, the difference is by 1 whole grade. So students, when you're applying to their top schools, they notice that the scores will be quite different, and maybe for the schools that are only accepting top students with an AL score of 4 and under, in this case, it will be much harder for them to actually apply into the school because their score is 1 point more than required. So in this case, students may be forced to rely on their curricular activities. And in fact, I think some of us know as well, it's the DSA system. As you can see here, the direct school admission for secondary schools allows students to apply to some schools before taking PSLE. Just to take note as well, PSLE is still important because students still need to take the PSLE. But with the DSA route, it is a little easier for them because they can use these various methods: sports and games, the arts, debate and public speaking, science and math, languages and humanities, and even leadership to be able to apply into our schools here. And in fact, I highly recommend anyone who can actually try the DSA route to apply to the DSA route and use that to enter the top schools. Now, let's give you an example of how we can use math to actually apply into some of the top schools, like let's say NUS High. So NUS High School of Math and Science only accepts admissions through DSA. So we need to make sure that your child's resume and portfolio are prepared. And in fact, many parents actually tend to come to us closer during the DSA period to actually ask us for such help over here, okay, on how to prepare their child's resume and portfolio for this. So I would definitely recommend that if you want to improve your child's portfolio, to attempt some of these competitions in schools, especially the math competitions like NMOS, for those who are still not in the P5 level, let's say you're P4 right now, or if let's say for those who are P5 this year, to still seek out for the other competitions such as SMOPS and RMO as well. Okay, it is still helpful later on. Now, let's understand a little bit of the statistical analysis because I believe that in order for you to believe us that we know what we are doing, we also need to show you what we have already analyzed for the past few years of PSLE. So now, just to share a little bit first, why I believe that we have a credit to actually be able to share with you stuff regards to the PSLE. Because as we can see over here, okay, our students in 2022, there are 76% of our elite students that did manage to score their AL1. And in fact, it improved a little bit more in 2023, where 80% of them received their AL1. As you can see, there is a slightly upward trending curve. So I really do hope that with this, that many more parents will be able to trust us as well. So a question for everyone. Are you aware of the key topics in PSLE? Now, I would just like to take a quick look at the chat first to see if there are any parents who do know about the key topics in PSLE. So let me just take a quick look at the chat first to see if there's anyone who is able to reply this. Okay, whether you do know about the PSLE or not. Okay, so in this case, maybe I haven't have any parents that are willing to share, but not to worry. On my part, I have actually many things to share as well on what is currently ongoing in our PSLE. So a PSLE breakdown, you can see here, we have actually done many years of the papers. In fact, mainly starting from 2017 all the way to 2023. But later on, in the information that I'm providing there for everybody, it will be mainly targeting from 2019 all the way to 2023. So we can see here, a preliminary investigation will actually show that our PSLE topics are mainly covering statistics, measurement and geometry, followed by numbers and algebra. Now, so from a very broad perspective, right, calculations is actually a very vital thing in PSLE. And many a times, students will say that they are careless in the test. But are they really careless? It could actually be that they are just bad at calculations. Now, from my standpoint of after 8 years of practice with abacus, I would say that there are many students who are currently pretty weak in their calculations through mental arithmetics. So I always say that I want students to actually prepare themselves and practice hard. Do not just keep on focusing on using a calculator to solve every question, especially when in P5 you're allowed to do so. It is important for yourself to actually prepare and do a bit more mental arithmetics so that you are a bit more prepared for the paper one in the actual PSLE paper, because that will be the only paper where you are not allowed to use the calculator. So you must remember, it is still important to make sure that your calculation is still on par with the other students that are also taking PSLE with you. Now, a closer look at the topics, and you will notice that we have broken down into some of the more familiar topics, such as whole numbers, fractions, geometry, measurement, decimals, data, ratio, area and volume, algebra, rate and speed, and percentage. And I've mentioned two critical parts over here. One, the question count, and number two, the total marks. So the question count is pretty important because it shows us the main component of the PSLE paper, which is, you can see here, tackles very heavily on geometry and on whole numbers as well. But I would like you to also focus on the total marks, which is in this case over here, the area and volume. This shows that, in this case, the marks very heavy, it's very heavy on stuff relating to geometry. Let's say we see here area and volume, and also geometry as a general component by itself. So in order to score well, you need to make sure that geometry, one part of geometry must be heavily covered where possible. But where specifically? Now let me break down even further for everybody. A more detailed breakdown that we have for the modules. And we have another two more things to look at. The question count followed by the marks ratio. So the question count, again, very similar to the previous part where we talk about the number of questions that are being tested in the PSLE paper. But the marks ratio would refer to the total marks allocated to that specific module and divided by the number of questions. So this will give you the marks ratio on how significant or how difficult each question is inside that particular chapter. So I'm going to split it into 3 sections. And just before I mention the 3 sections, I want you to see that for the modules, I've specifically arranged it from lower primary all the way to upper primary on the right-hand side. This means that we have around the P4 section, around the middle portion. Okay, we have around P5 at this part and P6 nearing the end. So the 3 sections. So for students at AL1 and 2, looking at the challenging topics would actually be very important because that will be where more marks are being allocated and where completing each question will grant them a lot of points. So it's important for them to tackle such difficult questions. But for students who always tell themselves in P6, there are many more things to learn and it's going to be harder to cram even more knowledge, we have another key section here. While P6 introduces some new topics such as algebra, your speed and rate, and also your area and circumference of a circle, do take note that they have a much lower marks ratio, which means that the questions that are setting are also going to be easier in general. So this case over here, you can see that algebra and speed are fairly rare, and at the same time also going to be more a little easier as well. But just to take note, speed and rate is a little bit lower than usual because of COVID. Because during COVID, the focus on speed is not as much, and therefore there is a reduction in the number of questions being tested, or if the questions being tested, they are also easier as well. As you can see in the recent papers, it starts to get harder and harder and harder. Now, what about students who are currently struggling a little bit more when preparing for their PSLE? We always tell them to look at another two more topics, one on angles and the other on statistics. So for students at AL 3 to 4 and below, the focus on these topics would actually be worth more marks to them, because the marks ratio is lower, meaning that the questions are easier. And at the same time, mastering these questions would give them a lot more benefits because they get to tackle a lot more questions in depth. Although the marks ratio is lower, they cover a very high percentage of the entire paper, around 20%. So if they're able to at least tackle these two chapters and make sure they master it very well, by the time they come into PSLE, they have covered at least 20% of the scores. So again, depending on where your current standard is, you can seek out on where to focus on. And again, this is the same thing as per what we inform our students as well. Now, as we delve in a little bit further, we start to go and see the comments made by parents. And I believe some of you parents here may have been one of the parents that actually shared your concerns. Concerns such as the tough 2019 PSLE math paper. 5 challenging questions over the years. Now, well, rather than just tackling on 5, in fact, we just tackle the one right on the screen, because this is the 2019 paper on patterns. Now, a pattern question is a very significant question inside the PSLE, and in fact, one that is typically a little bit more difficult, and especially for this year. In fact, I'll just straight up tell all of you that the answer at the end is actually a 5-digit number, okay? Yes, the total number of your gray, white triangles and the percentage that was used, we have to actually work with 5-digit numbers. Now, we may think that working with a calculator is going to make things easier for everybody. But the fact that the numbers are large, it actually shows to the students that the questions can be really difficult. Now, some other parents also mentioned that they are speechless because kids get upset over tough math papers. Not in 2019, in fact, in 2022, again, this was shared to the public. Now, there were even more comments that were made in 2023 as well, where parents raised concerns on difficulties of PSLE math exams, and they were sharing them more with Straits Time as well, and to tell them that they are getting a bit more frustrated with the difficult content that they are covering in the PSLE. Now, what more do we have? So I want to share with you some of these questions that the parents and students are concerned over. So we have stuff like, again, the very recognizable 2019 patterns related question, and we have another one in 2020 as well, also actually somewhat like a patterns based questions as well. We can even see that there is a heuristics questions that was actually tested in the recent years in 2022. And for this particular one, why do we even consider under heuristics if we see blocks that looks like a volume related chapter? Because in this case, there is actually simultaneous equations that are involved here as well, which is a kind of a surprise to many parents, because these kinds of topics are not as commonly taught in most schools. There are some schools that actually tackle them, especially for the top schools. But for the, I would say the more moderate schools, okay, they tend not to actually tackle these kinds of questions as often. So if students were to go into the test, they would find this particular question pretty challenging. Now, we have more to come, because in circles chapter, you can see again, the 2019 paper strikes once more. It's showing again another series of questions that are going to be really challenging for many parents and many students. And you can see over here, this one question was also the same question that was mentioned inside the Straits Times article as well. And in fact, I want you to look at the 2021 question. in my opinion, it is also considered as a slightly more challenging question because of the overlapping section in the lines over here. Now, I'll tell you more about this later on because it will reappear in my slides once again. Now, another thing to see that in your area and perimeter, again, another geometry topic, we see that 2021, 2022, 2023, these are the questions that students tend to have problems when they come out of the PSLE hall. They tend to ask, so how do we solve these questions? All three questions over here actually happen to have one thing in common, the overlapping perimeter, where in the first part, the shaded and unshaded region overlap. In your second figure there, your three fences there will overlap in the middle, and even on your right hand side where the trapeziums are overlapping one another. So again, more concerns on these kinds of questions, and we in fact try to tackle this with our own students as well, just in case the 2024 paper has a similar question as well. Now, a little bit more about word problems, because I'm pretty sure many parents would say, word problems, always a problem for my child, which is true. Because you can see here, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, each of the 5 past years, I have brought one of the questions. And I would say that firstly, the 2019 paper on word problems may be a little easier, which it is. But coming to 2020 and all the way to 2023, the word problems have been increasingly difficult. I'm pretty sure that many parents and students, whenever they hear these two people, Helen and Ivan, you definitely will remember this question, because this question was one of the most famous questions in our PSLE math that year. And in fact, it continues to concern many of the parents when they are tackling the word problems, because word problems play a very significant role in many of the students' difficulties and the troubles that they go through when they are revising or doing well in their school. Okay, they always tackle problems like fractions, percentage, ratio, average as well. And if you notice that the 4 topics that I just mentioned, they're all from primary 5, not in primary 6. Do take note, your child doesn't learn these topics in primary 6, they learn them in primary 5. So the troubles begin in primary 5. Hence the reason why it's important to start practicing not from P6, but from P5. Now, so we even managed to use this opportunity to actually set up our own social media campaign as well. I, in particular, also set up my own account in Red, or we call it 小红书, okay, where I actually shared many questions that we have done for PSLE. And in the recent years, okay, there was a period of time where I kind of took a break because of other commitments within the company, but now I'm back because I'm tackling all related to PSLE. So I've been sharing many more content as well with regards to PSLE, and you can even use this opportunity to go and check out my account. No, not really just to go and follow me or stuff like that. But in fact, if you are really you're trying to find out a bit more about PSLE, you can look at the stuff there, because many of the content there I'm sharing there is actually very applicable for this year's PSLE students, which is a preparation for next year's PSLE as well. And we even use TikTok, where one of our colleagues here, Singy, who has actually been using a lot of opportunities in TikToks to share these PSLE struggles as well with the students. You can see the 2021 paper somehow managed to capture a lot of people's views, whether is it parents or students, it's a mix of them. So you can see all these content from our social media. So we want to make sure that we use this trend as well to get students to be aware of the likely struggles in the upcoming PSLE and start to prepare themselves from the current PSLE to next year's PSLE. Now, just to share once more, okay, I have briefly mentioned this at the start, but again, this coming Thursday, this is where our students are actually taking their PSLE paper, and I want to use that opportunity, this coming Friday, okay, I'm going to be using that opportunity to actually share the solutions in the paper 1 and paper 2, of all the questions that I can obtain from students, so that they will be able to find out how to do these questions and where the struggles may have been. For all the other parents that are interested to find out more about this year's math papers, please also take this opportunity to go and come and join us as I cover these questions with everyone on the best methods to solve the questions, where I can find them on the spot, and also on what I believe is the current trend on the PSLE papers, on where they are aiming to tackle, and what is the likelihood of the upcoming PSLE paper even in next year as well. So how can we improve our children so that they'll be able to do better for PSLE? There are a few things that I need to cover that I'm pretty sure that everyone already hears about, but may not be able to truly understand the main concerns for that. Now, let me share, I would like to actually get people to share with me first, what are some of the struggles that your child may face in math. But, just in case, okay, if you want to share, please feel free to share them inside your YouTube or TikTok whatsoever. But the thing is, I will try to move on as well so that I can simultaneously look at the comments while also trying to share my point of concern. Now, some of the common weaknesses, as we can see, if we just look at this one little solution that was written by one of my students, I'm not going to name who, okay, so we can see some problems. Number one, the answers are a little sloppy. There are no equations and units to go and explain the answer, and in fact, the models have been drawn quite poorly as well. So let me tell you, actually, the student's answer for this question, the way he drew the models, is on the right path. But without any explanations on how to solve the question, now it just shows whether, it doesn't really show whether the student really truly understands the content, or whether or not he's just, doing it out of spite. Now, meanwhile, if we look at the image on the right-hand side, we can see a very visible difference. So a definite improvement, but this is of another student. So we can see here, neat handwritings, clear steps, the final answer even marked out so that it is clear for me what is the expected route and the answer for the question. This shows to me that this student in particular is able to really understand what is going on, and if PSLE markers will be able to mark the paper, they'll be really happy because this is a really nice script. But okay, I will still say some improvement that could be made to highlight some keywords and also to label each of the equation. So this is the ways that we can find some of the problems and the improvements that students have. Then we can try to inform parents and tell them where to target and focus on. And in fact, at this point of time, parents that are currently watching the screen right now, you can try to jot down all these things to make sure that your child is able to make a little bit of change. Even a little bit of change will help them a lot more for next year's PSLE. So try to neaten the workings, try to write out clear steps, try to even mark out the final answer by writing at the bottom or even within the question itself, so that the markers will be able to find out the thought process of your child. And why is the thought process so particularly important? Now, let me share with you some concerns with regards to carelessness. So you may think that there's no relation, but I will mention one more thing later. So carelessness is a common excuse for students to explain that their answers are wrong. They'll just say, teacher, I am so sorry, I made a careless mistake. I actually know how to do the question. Well, sometimes it is true, but at the same time, carelessness is a huge problem. It is important to actually inform all of our students here that carelessness is not okay, but for a very particular reason in recent papers. So what? In 2022, there was this CNA article that actually mentions to their students, mentioned in the students here that, students that have been typically scoring really well in school, scoring even the 95s, expecting their AL1s, but after taking the actual PSLE paper, their child's results dropped to AL3, even 4, even 5 as well. And I'm also one of the teachers who are affected because I have students scoring very good scores in school, AL1. But upon reaching the actual PSLE paper, their results dropped as well. They actually dropped to up to even AL3. Now, one of the main reasons is carelessness, but not in the way that we expect. Because, many actually, even for me as well, when I first saw that result, I thought there was actually a hidden bell curve that could be affecting, where because the papers are easier due to COVID, many more students are scoring better. Thus, the higher score is, the bell curve is swayed towards the higher scores, causing a lot of my students who are typically scoring very well to drop a lot in their grades. But do take note as well that it is actually not true. There is a misconception amongst parents and even me in the past as well that there is a standard bell curve that students' performance fall into. This is actually not the case anymore. There is actually no quotas of students scoring AL 1 or 2. This means that it is only due to the students' carelessness that actually resulted in the loss of their marks. This means that as the papers get easier, again due to COVID, this actually resulted in many of the students maybe finding the papers very easy, clearing them very quickly, and not checking them properly, which results in having a greater impact later on as well. In fact, there is a second thing that was mentioned here, that the markers were actually deliberate over answers that do not fit exactly into the marking scheme. Now, why would they want to focus on that? Because they want to make sure that students get to express their own train of thoughts as well, and there is a slight variety in the ways that students may want to express their own answers. So markers may actually discuss whether the responses are valid, which means even algebra can be considered as one of the potential solutions, as long as it can lead them to the correct answer. But again, if the markers cannot understand the solutions, they will not be able to grade, even if the answers are correct. So it's still a call of concern. Now, time management is another factor as well, because there are students who do not have enough practice when they are practicing for their PSLE. Maybe because they don't have enough mock tests, maybe because they are very focused in other subjects as well. And also, one of the concern was because in schools, they have taken out a lot of the tests, which then again reduces the kids' pressures into the actual tests. Meaning that when they do their actual PSLE paper, they find that this stress is a little bit too much for them to bear in the actual test itself. So it is still important for us to actually give students the chance to attend these mock tests so that they are better able to understand, some the stresses during the actual exam itself, and also to be able to ensure that their child is able to complete the test on time. So it's important to make sure that your child doesn't just do the papers just because they need to do the papers, not just to expose them to questions, but sometimes even time them as well because they need to get the pressure. They pressure themselves at the start, making PSLE a little easier along the way. Now, one more thing to take note is also the marking scheme. And why did I still tackle about the marking scheme despite the news mentioning that MOE will be a bit more lenient against the other solutions that are written by the students? It's because if you know the marking scheme, you know the correct method, that markers are more likely to give the score. So it's still important to actually understand the marking scheme so that we know how to tackle the question in a way that markers will like, and they're more likely to actually give you the score, rather than writing one whole long list of the methods that the student prefer, but may not be accepted by the markers in the end. Now, let me share with you a little bit about Think Academy's programs. And I know there are some parents, the moment you see this, you will feel, too much promotion on our own programs already. But I just want to share with you something. So please at least stay to the point where I show you a little bit about the calendar of plans that we have all the way into 2025. So now let's share with you a little bit of our classes first. So how do we conduct our classes? In our classes, we have this thing called the Learn and Discover, where we are allowing parents to be able, the students to be able to understand through guided topics first, so they are able to understand new concepts more easily. Now, the next part is where we have our Explorer questions, where we cover each and every question type that is related to the chapter itself, so that the students will be able to get an introductory level to the tougher questions that are at the end. And what do we have at the end? The challenge questions. Why are the challenge questions important? Because we want to help our students obtain AL1. And in order to score AL1, our students need to try tough questions. So once they experience tough questions, it's easier for them to do tough questions in the actual PSLE. Now, we also want them to practice questions to allow students, extra practice questions to allow students to be able to apply the methods that they have just learned inside the Explorer questions and straight into the practice questions. As they are able to apply them directly, they will be able to understand what they have just learned and how it can potentially apply to future examination questions as well. Now, moreover, many parents have been asking us, so is there homework? Now, Think Academy actually has homework that is given at the end of the class as well, where students need to do two main focuses. One, the standard questions that is like we do normally, while also there are special type of question called the spot the mistake. Well, we actually have this special component so that we can make sure students are able to spot their own mistakes rather than us trying to find their own problems. So having this spot the mistake allows students to practice spotting mistakes so that when they do a revision or when they were to do the actual questions in PSLE, they are able to spot their own mistakes so that they are able to reduce the chances of carelessness during the test itself. Now, we also like to tackle a wider range of homework questions as well so that we are able to find the weaknesses of each student. Maybe some of the earlier and easier questions, students tend to have a little bit of fundamental issues, so they even got the easier questions wrong. Or where some of them maybe only have difficulties in the tougher questions, which means they should be doing rather well, just that we have to find a way to improve their scores further into the AL1 mark. Now, our slides are also engaging, as you can see over here. So we also have our own slides that we prepare weekly, and we actually explain students in a very nice and written manner. Maybe not the best handwriting that I have here in the company, but still, we make sure that our slides are engaging and we explain all methods extensively to make sure students truly understand what is going on. And to make it easier, we'll give all of you an example of one of my more recent lessons on circles and sectors, where I explain to students how to do the questions and even write down little by little methods to make sure students are able to understand each and every part, the step-by-step process on how to solve as well, and even the solutions on how to do each and every one of them. And for this question in particular, there is even something more interesting. If you see this 20 plus 12 plus 8, this was one thing that even one of my strongest students did not really see immediately. They actually had a slightly tougher time by adding each numbers individually while trying to add each of the straight lines, and they only learned of this fast method after I have explained. So again, we have many wide variety of methods to actually teach our students. Now, after learning our lessons, actually we can see there's a gradual improvement in our students, the way they write their solutions. You can see, one thing I mentioned, to write the precise equations on how to solve the questions. Another student of mine, and this is one of our strongest students, the strongest students that I have in my courses, actually wrote a very nice set of solutions, even mentioning the word general term, where they are able to see what's going on inside this question and telling me that they know what is going on in the lesson. Our students then later are able to apply the methods they just learned in school, in the class, and apply them to their homework itself. It also allows us to actually mark our homework, mark our students' homework, and we can even tell them when they make a little careless mistake. Now, even my strong student over here also made a little blunder inside this question, where they copied something a little bit off in their probably their calculators. You can see a 6-digit number adding to a 5-digit number, but resulting in a 7-digit answer. So again, something like this is where we're able to help students also spot their careless mistakes as well. So yes, we do have homework, and we also make sure that we mark our homeworks so that students are able to find a way to fix their errors. Now, the activities. So I think activities will be a very important role for many, very important thing that many parents are trying to look out for whenever they look at the center. And I do have many activities that are planned not only from now, not only for the recent, the upcoming months, but all the way to next year's PSLE. So what are they? Okay, mention here first. So why am I starting so early, which means as early as now? In fact, the reason why is because I have plenty of time to actually prepare our students for the upcoming PSLE. And in fact, it's by many of these things that I have in stock. So firstly, the trial classes, while many students are able to come down to our actual lessons itself and experience how I teach on a regular basis, so that they can get an experience of how their life would be if they were to join our courses. But not only that, they are able to allow us to also find the weakness of the students. There is also this PSLE DMD as well, where we're allowing everyone to join so that they can experience basically a teacher, giving out regular questions. They're able to do the questions and then later on send it back to us to be marked. Now, I also have webinars as well, like the ongoing webinar and also the upcoming PSLE live webinar later on this week. But even more webinars that will be planned along the way, and especially one in November, where I aim to actually do a special webinar to tackle the end of year questions that are experienced by the primary 5 students. Now, as we know, the exams are also going to be looming near, and I know that many parents are actually asking us, are there any kind of activities for the students preparing for this year's end of year examinations? Well, I'm not just going to tackle this year's end of year examinations, but in upcoming P5 PSLE mock test, I'm also going to be hosting even more mock tests later on at the later parts of next year. So again, with mock tests, we're able to give a little bit of pressure for our children and experience the pressure on a more regular basis so that they'll be more prepared for the actual PSLE. Apart from that, I also want to share that we have our revision courses as well that I'm planning, because when students go on holidays during the December period, they tend to forget a lot of things that they have learned in the past. So what we'll do, we'll try to take this opportunity to make sure that they are revising as soon as possible the moment they begin their year in primary 6, to revise all the stuff in P5. And also, of course, add additional revision sessions as well, okay, for our students that are going to be taking the PSLE next year. So during April and June period, to use the best opportunities before the mid-years and during the June holidays to prepare our students for the upcoming PSLE. So more on that, there are actually special programs that we actually only set for our own students, like this weekly consultations. And you can see here, 2023 prelim papers and even the 2024 ones as well. So this year, we have actually done this with our students, and I think that it has really helped them a lot because they are exposed to a wider range of questions where we are able to understand the struggles of students in different schools, and also make them understand a wider variety of questions along that are done by other schools as well, thereby increasing their chances of being able to solve even the toughest questions when tackled in PSLE. Okay, and we're planning to do the same as well with this year's prelim papers for next year's students as well. But remember, again, this is only for our long-term course students. So as a special tag to them, okay, a special program for them, just so that they're able to do even better for PSLE. Now, the current trial class, the first trial class has already ended because it was hosted about 2 weeks back, and also the ongoing seminar as well. But you can see, despite these two being blocked out right now, the rest of it, there are still many more events to come. Now, how do we assess your child's level? So the best way for us to actually assess your child's level is either to try out one of our evaluation tests or to just come for a trial lesson. We're able to see your child's current abilities and how we can help them, nurture them to the AL1s in the future as well. And just to share with everybody, yes, Think Academy is still hosting even more trial classes for the primary 5 students. You can see over here, Master Primary 5 Foundations and Build Confidence in PSLE. So we have one that is going to be hosted this Sunday from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Now, just in case the QR code may be a little small on the screen, I have also made it a little bigger. So we can see here, the location will be an in-person class at our Think Academy Grand Trunk Mall branch at Tai Seng, where you walk out of Tai Seng station is only going to be a minute's walk from the Tai Seng MRT station. Now, apart from the trial lessons as well, now many parents are also concerned about the mock tests because you're asking us if we have prepared a set of mock tests for everyone. Okay, so sorry for the image over here, but basically we have a preparation for our students for this year. And you can see over here, we have 2 types of sessions. The Sunday session, where it's an in-person one, where our students will get to come down and sit in front of me. Okay, and it'll be me. I'm covering the in-person session, and I'll get them to do the questions, and I will help them, mark them, and explain to them later on. Oh, there is also a Saturday session as well, where we have teacher Ying to actually do our mock test run through, and after that she'll be explaining the students as well, because we understand that some students aren't able to come down to our Grand Trunk Mall branch, so therefore we have also set up an alternative online session. But do take note that these sessions here have a limited slot as well, so you need to, if you want to join, you need to sign up quickly. Again, the QR codes, as you can see, are already on screen. Now, why is this mock test important, and why did we actually create such mock tests here? So you can see, for this year's PSLE, we have actually set 4 rounds of mock tests to prepare students a wide variety of questions, where some of them are even modified questions of the past year's PSLE. So why is this so important? Because in one of the years when I was preparing the papers, you even noticed that, like I mentioned, this particular circles question had a very similar relevance to the question that I set in the actual mock test. And because of this, students that already know the methods of how to solve my question in the mock test was able to do this question really easily. In fact, the student came out of the examinations and straight away told me, "Teacher, there was a question very similar to the one that you tested in the mock test." He specifically mentioned the mock test. So the mock test aims to actually give students a wide range of questions, and sometimes I'm able to even so-called spot questions that may appear in the actual PSLE paper. Now, our long-term courses as well, okay, how else can we improve our students to PSLE? So we have some short-term events like this mock test, like the trial lessons, like the DMD, like some of the revision short-term courses. But the best way to actually help your child would be to join the long-term courses, because we'll be helping them for an extended period of time. Okay, and in fact, some of the special services that I once provided my students as well was for them to do assessment books back at home, but they can come down and I can go through the questions with them. After marking through, some of my students from AL, actually I have a student that came in to me in P6, scoring an AL6, and I managed to improve all the way to AL1 just because of additional practices like this. But we only open to our long-term courses students, to be fair, because if they are willing to give the trust in us, we are also willing to use this to go and help them in advance. So other things that we provide, okay, so our long-term courses, we have for teacher Ying and me as well, we actually have many days that we cover our courses, and do take note, it has to be teacher 1 Ying or teacher Jason, me. So the reason being, because we also have another teacher, Turner, who is also doing primary 5 math higher achiever classes, but he's tackling only the AMC8 competition. So it's mainly targeting for math Olympiad students. But for me, teacher Jason, and teacher 1 Ying, we are covering exclusively on PSLE content. And we can actually use this 120 minutes to cover a wide range of stuff that will be covered throughout the PSLE years. Now, these are the topics that we are tested on, and I would like you to focus on these few. And I'll say it out loud and a little bit quickly so that everybody can actually see what is going on here. Now, lesson 4, advanced angles. Lesson 5, complex word problems. Lesson 6, our general word problems. Lesson 7, area and perimeter. And lesson 8 on rate. Lesson 9, number of units times value of units. Lesson 10, patterns. Lesson 11, statistical graphs. Lesson 12, volumetric rate, a little bit different. Lesson 13, 3D shapes. Lesson 14, triangle number tables. And last but not least, lesson 15, circles and sectors. So we're covering these topics, and starting from lesson 4, which is next week for us, okay, we are going to be going through only PSLE topics all the way to PSLE. So as we can see over here, the topics that we set over here are based on students, what students are learning since primary 5, okay, from lesson 4 all the way to 14. And even for 15 as well, something a little bit special, you can see circles and sectors 2. So we actually started circles and sectors 1 in the previous semester because we want to train students in advance before they learn the content in school. So it's easier to follow, and we can also make them understand the content early on. So even if they want to actually practice questions in P6 at the earlier part of the years, it's going to be a lot easier for them to follow since they are already learning the circles and sectors with us. Now, for like what I mentioned, for the students in our long-term courses, we also actually open up a wide range of these consultations, weekly consultations, where we go through past year papers. We can see over here, we even actually purchased our 2024 papers that was collected by a certain website. So we're using this content here to go and help each of our students to go and prepare the solutions, to prepare our solutions, rather than just getting the students to look at the solutions given at the end of the paper. Because sometimes the solutions at the back are not the best or may even have a little bit of errors as well. But with our solutions, students are better able to understand how to solve such questions when they were to encounter them in their exams or in PSLE. So by going through these kinds of questions, students are better exposed to what is important. Now, if any parents here are interested to go and find out all of these courses here, you can just simply head down to our Think Academy website. Because just by typing Think Academy Singapore in your search engine, one of the first few you should see would be us, Think Academy Singapore. As you click into our courses here, you'll be able to see our list of generated courses of all those that I've talked about. The trial lessons, the mock tests, the upcoming long-term courses as well. Okay, so last but not least, I would hope that maybe there will be some international parents that happen to be looking at the screen here. So just to let you know, although your child may not be taking PSLE, actually our courses here would still be able to cater to even international students as well. But maybe it could be a little harder for them depending on where they have already studied in their school. But at the same time, our courses could still be beneficial because in general, it helps our children improve their results or in math in general. But apart from that, I know some parents, actually want to sign up their children for the American Math Competition hosted by the Mathematics Association of America. So the reason why I also want to mention this is because even some of our local parents may even consider sending their child for this AMC8 competition as well. And if you want to find out more, actually, teacher Turner will be giving a presentation tomorrow in Chinese, and he's going to be sharing a little bit about the PSLE, but also quite a bit on the AMC8 competitions. If you want to find out more, please make sure that you join the webinar tomorrow as well. Now, last but not least, let me give a quote for everybody. Teachers are the guide to those that are willing to be guided. If your child is willing to be guided, if you are willing to let us guide your child, we will be able to guide them as well. So, if there's any questions and answers, you can type them inside this chat, or you can also alternatively find us, me, or our student services members or marketing members to go and reach out to us so that we can explain and answer and explain all the queries that you may have. Now, that will be all for the seminar, and I'm just sitting here for a little bit just in case any of you have questions for us. If not, then that will be all for today's seminar already. Okay, so yes, I'm staying here for maybe about 2 to 3 minutes just to see if anyone has any questions or comments. If not, no worries. Okay, then we'll just end it a little later. Okay, are there any parents with any questions? So just in case, why not we do this? Okay, I'm just going to leave the slide at one of the earlier components because I want to make sure that everybody is aware of one particular thing that is going to be hosted by me. Okay, let me go back a little bit more, so sorry. This one. Okay, so once again, a quick reminder. So yes, just in case any parents are interested to find out more about what's happening for this year's PSLE Math, okay, please make sure to join us once more this coming Friday at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to be compiling the questions that are prepared by my own students and later on use that to go and share with everybody the troubles, the questions that we have in the upcoming PSLE questions, and also on how to solve them and what is the general trend in the PSLE papers as well. Okay, if I think I'm not receiving any queries for now, so not to worry, that'll be all for today's webinar. Thank you everybody for taking your time to actually sit in for this webinar, and I hope that it has been insightful in on how you can prepare your child for next year's PSLE. Thank you everybody, and goodbye.